Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today is a very special day here on the Meet No Ball YouTube channel. We have our first collab. I'm losing my collaboration virginity to Gibson, man. Here he is. You guys know the joke, Michi13. That's something else, but this is Michi22,
Yeah,
losing my
22.
collaboration virginity. Look, guys. This is a very exciting time. Gibson, if you guys are not aware of him, he's a content creator both on YouTube and on TikTok, a person who actually inspired me to start making YouTube videos. So I'm really happy that he's here. I cannot wait for this video. If you guys like this video, if you guys want to see more collabs, then let me know in the comment section down below. And most importantly, before I hand it over to Gibson so he can say hi to you guys, please go subscribe to Gibson both on YouTube and on TikTok. If you guys fuck with me, with Michi, with Michi No Ball, you're gonna love Gibson's content. He's a content creator for Barca just like myself. He makes fantastic videos, and this guy's just gonna keep growing, man. So you gotta be one of the first to say I was one of the first subscribers to Gibson. So, guys, the link will be in the description, both his TikTok and his YouTube. Please go over there and subscribe. I'm telling you guys, you will not be disappointed. But yeah, man, enough glazing, Gibson. Now let's bring you in,
Yeah.
Gibson. How I appreciate you coming in, man. How you feeling?
Yeah, bro. Thank you, man. I'm good. You got me blushing over here, man. I appreciate it. Thank you. And, dude, your channel is awesome, man. All the content, everything, it's great. And there's just so much stuff to talk about with Barca right now. So I'm
No,
just so excited. So
it's going
yeah.
to be really exciting. Guys, by the way, like I
Yeah.
said, just subscribe to Gibson because he makes great content and also because we're going to be doing a video over on his channel as well. We're doing two videos. My channel, as you guys can tell by the title, we're going to be talking mostly about Barca's summer so far, our thoughts on the transfers and, the players that no one's actually left yet, but who we want to see leave and all that good stuff. And then on Gibson's channel, we're going to talk about expectations, obviously the first season with Hansi Flick, what we expect to see from the team on the pitch. And it's going to be really fun, man. We're going to do probably 30 minutes on each channel. I don't know when Gibson's going to post this video, but I'm going to post mine on Saturday. His might be up today. I don't know where it's going to be up. But again, go subscribe to Gibson. Go turn on his notification bell, and you guys will know when that video comes out. But yeah, man, enough yapping. Let's get into the video because Gibson, I got a lot of stuff I want to ask you, man. And let's just get into it right now.
Yeah.
First of all, we got to
Let's
start with
do
the
it.
man of the hour, Dani Olmo, the man who was announced today, I think officially as a Barca player. I want to ask you two questions. Number one, how do you feel about Dani Olmo, the player, and what do you think he can bring to this Barca team? And number two, I want to ask you, how do you feel about the signing in terms of like filling a position that wasn't really needed in a sense because we already have so many interiors. So again, Daniel Mo, the player, what you are looking forward to see from him as a Barca player, and also your thoughts on the choice from Deco and Joan Laporta, the Sane player who already kind of plays a position where we already have a lot of where it's saturated, for lack of a better word.
Definitely. Yeah. So the first part, honestly, I don't want to take anything away from the player that Danny Olmo is. I think he's great. I think 60 million, yes, like you said in the second part, it just could have been used elsewhere, I think.
Yes.
But I don't want to take anything away from Danny Olmo because I think he's a great player. What we saw with Spain, I think he can provide something for Barcelona. And I'm excited with the way that Hansi Flick is potentially going to use him because I think someone like Fermin Lopez, like someone like Gavi, I think can be very important for Hansi Flick. So I'm just excited for Danny Olmo to join. And I think it's just like any new signing, you're excited to add some fresh blood into the team because I think he can provide something like we saw at Spain. And I'll be completely honest, I wasn't watching Leipzig too much. I watched
Me neither.
maybe the games in the Champions League against Madrid. And I think he's one of those players that can maybe drift in and out. Sometimes you won't see him much. And of course, when everyone was fit for Spain, he wasn't starting, which I don't think you want to say that's a bad thing on his part because Spain's just loaded, especially they have so many players that are just good in tight spaces, which Daniel he is. But I just don't know if that's exactly what Barcelona needed this summer. And I think it's difficult if they don't sign another player to really get behind that signing. I think just right now, looking at it, the only signing being Danny Olmo and no players that maybe we kind of needed to sell have left so far. I'm gonna give the transfer window like a 2 out of 10 so far. That's my initial thought on it because, like you said in the second part of the question, it's just difficult to get behind a signing that Barca really didn't need in the first place. But at the end of the day, I know a lot of Barca fans are upset and they're feeling negative about this. But I'm going to support Danny Olmo 100% because
100%.
it's not like it was out of our pockets. I mean, 60 million could have been used worse, I would say.
Especially when you see
I,
Subimendi and his release clause, which kind of pisses me off. But anyway, not to cut you off, man. Go ahead.
yeah, of course, Deco somehow finds a way to pay more than the release clause because it expired like what 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean, could you not have maybe figured that out a couple weeks earlier?
Man.
14 days earlier would have saved.
Hey,
Which maybe,
he's only the sporting director for one of the biggest clubs in the world, bro. What do you
yeah,
expect from him? Poor
right,
guy.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he had so much merit
Yeah.
before that, right? Yeah, definitely. No, so obviously a lot of people are talking about Deco as well, but yeah, to answer the second part, I can't get behind it currently because there are other positions that I felt like Barcelona needs to fill. But that's not to say that Dani Olmo can't come in and provide something. I think, especially in and around the box, he
Yes.
can be very good. But that just begs the question: what's going to happen to Fermin Lopez? Because as we're making this video, I just checked on Twitter, in the Olympic gold medal match, I mean, he had 2 goals. He had a brace in the final. And this tournament, he's been great with Spain. So it's just I don't know what's going to happen with Fermin Lopez and other players that could possibly play in that position. But in terms of overall quality, I am very excited for Danny Olmo to join the club. Just felt like that money could have been spent elsewhere.
I 100% agree with everything you said. I mean, I echo it. I've talked about it at length on this channel already. I don't like people kind of they don't know how to separate the fact that I think Dani Olmo is a very, very good player, like you said. I think we saw it at the Euros. He has a knack for goal as well. He can play with his back to goal. He can turn. I made a video reacting to him a couple of days back, and I was actually very impressed with a lot of the highlights that I saw. His passing range is elite. He can play short. He can play long. He has a lot of great attributes around him, and obviously he's a guy who was made in La Masia. Dani Olmo spent 7 years in La Masia. That is, and you could tell a La Masia player from a mile away because they always have that quality, that
Right.
Barcelona gene in them. But again, for me, and I think this leads me to my next question, I feel like Dani Olmo for 60 million, especially for a club like Barcelona, is insane because you had the chance to go out and get other players in other positions. And I want to bring this to Nico Williams now because obviously he's a big story with Barca currently. Nico Williams, what's going to happen with him? They're not ruling out that he's coming to Barca. I've given up on the fact that he's coming to Barca. He's going to stay
Yeah.
at Atleti for one more year. If he wants to come next year, I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, if you don't come this year, don't come ever. That's petty as
Yeah.
fuck. Nico Williams is a
Yeah.
really, really good player. If he wants to come
Yeah.
next year, come like I'll pitch in some money to bring him in. Like I don't even,
I'll take him to the airport. Yeah.
I'll,
Yeah.
I'll pick him up.
Yeah.
I'll pick him up from
Yeah.
the airport.
Yeah.
Like I'll break the piggy bank. But
Yeah.
let me ask you this: if not Nico Williams, because obviously I think we both are on the same page that he's probably not going to come to Barca. Who do
Yeah.
you think if Barca do end up selling off? Because you got to sell somebody at this point. Because you spent 60 on Dani, you can't just bring in Nico. Like you can't just bring in someone else without selling because we know Barca's financial situation. So you're probably gonna have to
Right.
sell Roque, who's probably on his way out, which we can talk about later as well.
Yeah.
Rafinha, one of the good players. You're gonna have to sell one of them. If not Nico, who do you think would be a valuable option? Obviously, there's talks. I don't know if you've seen the reports recently about Kingsley Coman
Yep.
maybe coming to Barca. What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on the Nico Williams saga as a whole? And do you think that if he doesn't come in, Barca have to go out, or do you think Barca can just trust Rafinha and Lamine Jamal, and maybe if you bring back Joao Felix and I hate to say it, but Ferran Torres, I guess. Like
Yeah.
I don't know what do you think of the whole? Let's just talk about the winger position, and you can go whichever. I know I yapped a lot, but you can go whichever way you
Yeah.
want.
No, no, no. Yeah. No, definitely. That's I mean, for me, it was the most important position to reinforce this summer was the left wing position. And I think Barca, I thought it was going to be Nico Williams, but like you said, I've basically given up. I mean, it's like that Neymar, post with there's like 1% chance, 99% faith or something like that,
Right?
right?
Yeah.
You hope that there's a possibility that he still joins, but I mean, we just saw, I'm sure you saw the training video where he basically said, Oppo Atleti, I'm excited for the next season. I don't think he would make that video and turn around. I mean, some people in my comments said that's just media, that's normal. I don't think he would do that. I feel like it would have already been settled if he was leaving. I
Yep.
don't think he would rejoin. Yeah, I just don't see it happening. And that's very unfortunate because as we saw at the Euros, Nico Williams was incredible. He was so good. And he would have been exactly what Barcelona needed.
Yep.
But it just doesn't seem like he's going to leave. And I respect that. I admire that. His brother's playing there. I'm going to be honest. If I was playing with my brother, it'd be difficult for me to leave that club.
Yep.
But I mean, for the betterment of his career, potentially it would have been a nice time to make that move to Barcelona. But like you said, I'm not petty. If he joins next year, completely fine. I know I'm seeing that Johan Cruyff quote going around like, if you have second thoughts about playing for Barca, come on. I
It
mean,
gets overused so much, bro. Like it's so
yeah,
annoying. Like
yeah. What did
it's
we see for Griezmann? Like Griezmann
exactly.
a couple years ago, he made that video like saying he's staying at Letty, and then next season he joined. Barca
Enjoying it,
fans were
right?
not,
Exactly.
upset about it. So yeah, it doesn't really make any sense to me. But the left wing position, it is interesting because someone like Kingsley Coman, I heard Chiesa as well from Juventus. I'm not like heavily in like their stocks. I just don't think I'm really interested in those. Kingsley Coman, I think it'd be an interesting option on loan. Played under Hansi Flick as well at Bayern, but just the injury record, I just don't know if Kingsley Coman and Ansu Fati, if you can rely on even both of those guys together to play 60 games a season. And
Yep.
Ansu Fati thing, it's unfortunate. I would have really liked to see how he did in preseason because I know a lot of our Barca fans say it's done. Like he's not coming back. He's not going to be at that
I'm one of
Ansu
them.
Fati form.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I understand that. I wish he would have been given a chance. But I mean, Xavi obviously didn't rate him last season, sent him out on loan. I don't think things went very well at Brighton. But yeah, the left wing position, it's definitely the most important spot. And I do think that Dani Olmo could play there, but it would be more as like an inside forward. And I don't think he would hold the width, which is what Barca needed. And I think
Yep.
you need someone with a lot of pace that's direct, that's an opportunity to break on the counter. I don't think Danny Olmo is that guy. I think he wants the ball at his feet, and so it's just not. I don't think going to work very well in that position. And if Barca go into next season without buying a left winger, I just think they're going to run into similar problems that we saw with Joao Felix. That it didn't even seem like he was really starting that many games because when he did, he was just drifting in and out of games. He wasn't what you needed in that position.
Yep.
So that is definitely a position that Barca really need to reinforce. And I know Kvaratskhelia from Napoli and Rafael Leao, they've been rumored in the past, but that 100 million valuation, Barca just can't do it right now.
You can't.
So Nico Williams would have been perfect. I mean, like I said, I still hope there's that 1% chance that he does join, but I just don't see it happening. And I have a feeling that if he does want to join next summer, I'd be completely fine with it. He might renew his contract, and then his release clause would be a little bit higher, which would be a little bit unfortunate. But even if it's 50 to 75 million, I would still love to see Barcelona sign Nico Williams because what we saw at the Euros, he would be the perfect fit for that left wing position.
100% agree with everything you said once again. And look, for me, I think Nico, I think if it's gonna work with Dani Olmo playing out wide, you have to have the threat of Balde holding that width once he goes up. Like, because we know Hansi Flick, he's gonna have his fullbacks pushing up because that's the way
Yep.
modern football is nowadays. But especially with a manager like Hansi Flick, that's why Alphonso Davies was so good under him. That's why he had his breakout year with Hansi Flick. Obviously, the year they beat us 8-2. I don't even know why I brought that up, but guys, I'm a masochist in a sense. But
Yeah.
Alejandro Balde, he had if we get the Balde we had last year, and I said this in my reaction video once again, but I want to reiterate it one more time because it's really important. If you get the Balde that you had last season, who was a non-factor both offensively and defensively, it's not going to work because you need to have that threat of the winger pushing up and creating that overlapping run so you can drag the defenders out. If Daniel because Daniel loves to drift inside. Like if you
Yeah.
obviously he loves to drift inside when he's playing out on the wing. Now, if you're gonna play him centrally, it's a different story, and then you can play Rafinha. But for me, like I said, like you said, Ansu Fati for me is a guy who I still believe he has a lot of talent, and I hate giving up on him because I remember the game against Betis, where he scored a goal and then assisted Messi, and I was like, oh my God, this guy's next step. It's like the passing of
Yeah.
the torch. His goal against Inter in the UCL. I remember that stuff like it was yesterday, and being so
Yeah.
optimistic as a Barca fan, it was kind of like the same feeling that I feel now watching Lamine Jamal. And to
Yeah.
watch him and to see the injuries and all that stuff, it's just so disappointing. But I don't think you like Ansu Fati, Ferran Torres, and Joao Felix for me. I hate to say it, but they're all kind of the same. It's like
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like as players, but I'm talking about like their engine, like their motor is the same, and they come and go. Ferran is really inconsistent. Joao Felix is not even a winger in my opinion, and
Yeah.
Ansu Fati is again he has the talent, but he comes and goes a lot. And I think his confidence is so shattered now. It's going to be hard to regain that, especially when you have a kid who's 16, 17 on the team who you see and you're seeing and you're like, I could have been him. I could have
Yeah.
been Lamine Jamal. That was supposed to be me, and now I'm the one who's like getting talks about getting sold, and if we sell Ansu Fati, it's gonna be for less than 50 million in my opinion,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
he's probably damaged goods at this point. But for me, again, I 100% echo everything you said, except for the one thing that I do want to talk to you about right now is you said that your number one priority this summer was the winger. For me, it was
Yeah.
always the pivot because I
Yeah.
think that what we saw last year from Barca getting like on the counter in transition, obviously defensively, it was terrible, and I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that we didn't have a real pivot. And I love
Yeah.
Christensen. I think Andreas Christensen is one of the most underrated players in world football. He's not a pivot. And we saw even in the preseason games. Him and Casado, it wasn't working. He's too limited in possession. And, Casado and Bernal, I want to get your thoughts on that as well because I think they're great. I think Bernal is fantastic, actually. I have really high hopes for Marc Bernal. I think he's going to be a fantastic player and Casado as well. But I think it's putting too much pressure on the La Masia kids. But my question to you would be the following. Do you think, obviously, also with the exit of Romeo, which we make jokes about Romeo, but he was a body you could throw in there in games when there was like people that were injured. You could throw Romeo, you could throw Romeo in there, and he could sometimes do a job. I want to ask you, how irresponsible you think it is on the part of Barcelona to not have replaced the best DM ever? Like Sergio Busquets left the club 2 years ago, and you still
Yeah.
haven't found a replacement for him. How do you feel as a fan looking at Joan Laporta and looking at Deco, and with that whole situation? How does that make you feel? The fact that Barca still haven't found a replacement for Sergio Busquets, and it's been, again, like I said, it's been 2 seasons since he's gone. Like, and one more thing, Subimendi. Again, I understand that Subimendi was a Xavi signing, like everybody's pointing it out. Dude, 60 million for Subimendi is like Liverpool's gonna get that guy for his release cost is 60. Like
Yeah.
that to me is criminal. But again, I'll give the floor over to you. What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, no, all of that is great. Honestly, the pivot as well. Like you could say left winger, you could say pivot. I completely understand because last season, especially when Gavi was injured, that work off the ball was missed so heavily, and
Yes.
especially in the biggest
It's a
games for
great
Barca.
point.
I
It's a great
remember,
point.
yeah, I remember that game against Atletico Madrid. It was Frankie de Jong, Gundogan, and Pedri, and we got that. It was like Busquets, Iniesta, and Xavi for one game against Atletico Madrid, and that was like one of the best performances that Barca had. It was a
Yep.
1-0 win, easily could have been like 4-5-0.
Oh,
So
the one where
dominant.
at Montjuic where Joao Felix scored.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Did that
Yeah, yeah.
celebration. Yes,
Yeah, he
yes.
did the yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then somehow it's still back there this summer, but that's probably a little bit awkward there. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that performance was great. But then after that, it just seemed like they just weren't able to compete with teams quality wise. Their midfield was a lot worse than them. They didn't have players like Goodwin, Frankie de Jong, and Pedri, but they just had workhorses that were able to cover more ground and they were able to have much more of a balanced midfield. And Barca, they just did not have that, especially when Gavi got injured, because I think he was holding that entire team together, the entire midfield together. And honestly, that injury, I know it's just so sad for everyone involved because he's the heart of Barcelona, honestly. Like from La Masia,
Yeah.
just the effort that he puts into every single game, it's just so exciting to watch. I'm so excited to have him back. But I think that's really when Barca's season went wrong. And but overall, of course, you still did need a defensive midfielder, even if Gavi's 100% healthy. And the Zubamendi thing, it doesn't make much sense because I didn't watch much of him at Sociedad. I understand that. And obviously, when Rodri's starting in front of him, it's hard for him to get minutes for Spain.
Right.
But he came on in that final, and I don't think he put a foot wrong. I think he looked
He
like
looked
it didn't.
amazing.
Yeah, he was so good. And I mean, obviously, you can't take 45 minutes as like, oh, maybe we should spend 60 million. But obviously, Barca's been heavily linked to him for a year. And then Sociedad said he's not leaving. There's no way he's leaving this summer. Zubamendi is staying. And then Liverpool come calling for the same exact price. Maybe they didn't want to sell to another team in La Liga. But if he goes to Liverpool, I just won't understand what Barca's doing because they're spending 60 million on Dani Olmo in a position that they don't need, that does not need reinforced. When 60 million could have been spent for Zubamendi, I don't understand that because yeah, Romeo. I know we make jokes about him, but yeah, there were times when it was nice to throw him into a game when you have someone that was going into tackles. That was, I mean, he was taking fouls, he was doing good,
Yeah.
but that yeah, the priorities for Barcelona, especially since Busquets left, I think those last couple of years of Busquets, he was still doing well, but obviously you saw it was diminishing a little
The
bit. Like
decline came in. Yeah.
yes,
Bro,
yes,
not to cut you off, but that game against Inter in
yeah,
the UCL where Barca drew 3-3, remember the second
yes,
year with Thiago where we got grouped? He was
yeah,
fucking terrible that whole
yeah,
game. Like
yeah.
people forget, like Busquets was like, I think he got booed off the pitch at the Camp Nou when he came off. I think he got
That
booed off the pitch.
yeah.
Like people forget, but again, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, no, no. No, that you're good. No, that Inter game too. I don't exactly remember, but that was like the Ansu Fati. I think he headed it down to Dumfries, hit him right in the hand,
Oh,
and then
that was the San Siro. Like I'm talking about the second one at the Camp Nou.
oh,
Yeah.
gotcha.
The
Oh,
second
yes,
we're in
yes,
the 3-3 where Lewa scored the I think a brace actually. I think and then
yes,
Dembele,
yes.
that snake, scored a goal.
Yeah, I do remember that. Okay. Yes, yes. And that's I've watched Inter Miami because obviously I think both of us were big Messi fans. So I've watched
Yeah.
those games. I mean, it's not like Busquets looks incredible, amazing in the MLS right now. I think he's doing pretty well there. And you could even still see sometimes he was like not doing very well for Inter Miami. So I don't
Right.
think Barca, yeah, they should have kept him there. But I just think other clubs, they do so well at replacing these profiles. And Barca, I mean, they knew this decline of Busquets was happening, and they just kind of let it happen. I know it was at a difficult time when Barca financially, we're going through that. It was difficult for them to make signings, but man, I mean, some squad planning would have been great there because I think a lot of players they could have been signed and then maybe had 1 or 2 years to get acclimated to the club and to that position. But instead, Busquets leaves and you bring Oriol Romeo for 3.5 million. And to be honest, I didn't think for the options that were on the market, it was the worst idea. Just did not work out. And yeah, they still have not replaced Busquets. And for a club like Barcelona, with how important Busquets was for 10 years at the club, I mean, that should be the number one priority.
Should
But
be.
it's been a couple summers now and just hasn't happened.
I think the best example for me, and I'm not trying to like sit here and glaze the rivals, but they do good business, man. Real Madrid
I was
does
gonna say,
business the right way. Casemiro, bro, he won the UCL, literally won the UCL with Madrid. And then they were like, you know what, bro, we're gonna sell you. And we're gonna bring in this kid called Chouameni
yeah,
from Monaco. And
yeah,
dude, they sold Casemiro for like over 70 million. And I think the net spend on that transfer was like, I think they actually ended up making money.
yeah,
And for them, they Casemiro is like a figure for Madrid. Like not, I don't think he's the quite the player that Busquets was, but obviously the same amount, the same figure, a guy who won so many UCLs for them. And they're like, you know what, bro, United wants you. You're aging. We're gonna bring in this new kid, and he's probably one of the best. I think Tchouaméni is one of the top three best in the world at his position right now.
yeah,
And obviously was a guy who was a catalyst for them in like over this run last year that they had. So I don't think they actually didn't lose a single game when Tchouaméni was on the pitch last year with Real Madrid. They only lost two overall. But for me, again, that's the way that you should pivot. You should like Barca tend to get rid of players too late. Like you
Yeah.
gotta just learn how to pivot. And I think Barca sometimes don't know how to do that, and that's really frustrating for me because if Sergio Busquets, like he was obviously like a great player. To me, he's the best ever at his position. But you saw the decline for years. It's a great point that you brought up. You saw the decline for years. You should
Yeah.
have brought somebody else in. You should have
Yeah.
groomed. That's a fucking disgusting word. Not that. You should have had someone under the wing that can maybe come
Yeah.
in, and learn under Busquets. That's a
Yeah.
better way to use it.
Yeah.
But
Yes.
okay,
Yeah.
we talked about the pivot. We talked about Dani Olmo. We talked about the winger. Now I want to ask you one last question before we finish off this video.
Yeah.
Who do you think if you had to sell a player from Barcelona? And I'm not talking about like, Julian Araujo's leaving. I'm talking about like one of the key players on the team. Who would you not be upset if they left? So for me, if Barca sold Rafinha, I'd be upset. If
Yep.
Barca sold Frankie de Jong, I'd be upset. But I'd be less upset if they sold Frankie de Jong because even though we need depth in that position and Frankie's a guy who can play deeper, his wages are insane. Like it is
Oh,
ridiculous how much money Frankie de Jong makes. Roque, I would be upset because I don't want to go into this. Look, I know Pau Victor had a fantastic preseason, but you can't go into the season with having Pau Victor and then Lewandowski as your two options. Like you gotta have that other option of Victor Roque, who you brought in December. The fuck are we doing selling him? It's like in August. You brought him in December. So for me, Roque, I think Roque, Frankie de Jong, and Rafinha are the guys who may be on their way out. Also, there was talks about Araujo. I'm not on board with that whatsoever. I think that's a terrible idea. But for you, for Gibson, who do you want to see maybe? Who would you not be upset if they just, like, if Barca sold them, if they could garner, obviously, a good fee for them, and if Deco could actually be good at his job? Because knowing Deco, he'll give away Rafinha for like 10 million, I don't know, to the Saudi League because, I don't know, he's just terrible at his job. But you go
yeah.
ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm in agreement with you about all this. I think Ronald Araujo cannot be placing him on the transfer list. You cannot make your squad worse. And you're still like, if you're trying to get back to, at the level where you're competing for the Champions League every single season, you can't make your squad worse. And Ronald Araujo, he's a staple in Barcelona's defense. And obviously, yes, he's been a little bit unfortunate with injuries, but I still think he's great. On his day, of course, he's starting. I think he's starting for every team in the world. And Rafinha, I was when I heard Saudi was calling for with 100 million, for me it did turn my eye a little bit. I
Yeah.
thought it's not the worst idea, but I think for me that Champions League run that Rafinha had, especially those two performances against PSG, I just think it would be so difficult to sell someone like that because I think for Barca we've been asking for players that play for the badge for so many years. I think there are some players they just look like bums. They don't really look like they try or care. And
Mhm.
Rafinha, he's not one of those players. I mean, he's working as hard as possible. He's been played in different positions. I mean, he's lost his starting spot to Lamine Yamal.
Bro,
Has
he's
not.
played left back. I remember he played left back against Girona in the first game at Montjuic. He was playing as a
He,
right back. I think they had him as.
yeah, I mean, he can play anywhere. Like he's been playing on the left. I would honestly like to see him through the middle, but I don't think that's going to happen because Dani Olmo and Fermin Lopez, and
Yeah.
I think what the squad needs. Yeah, I mean, he's played everywhere. He'll do whatever he needs to for Barcelona. He's wanted to succeed here, and obviously, I sometimes describe it as maybe for 80 minutes. He doesn't have the most exciting game. Sometimes he's maybe misplacing a pass or he's just not able to get by his defender 1v1, but he'll pop out with a goal or an assist, and then it'll make it all worth it because, I mean, you have someone that's decisive and that's finally making the difference on Barcelona's scoreline and that's working as hard as possible. So I just don't think it's the right idea to sell a player like that because I think Barca's wanted a player like that for so long.
A long
And
time.
so I don't know if he's really going to be starting at the right wing position. Like maybe if they don't sign a left winger, he would play on the left, which I understand that because I think his cutbacks are good there. But just the player that Rafinha is, he always wants to cut inside on his left.
Yep.
So it's just scoring wise, I don't think he's going to have as prolific of a season if he's playing on the left. I mean, I think for a squad player there, it'll be good. But I think 1v1 dribbling, I don't even think he's great going at his defender. So I just don't think on the left he would be super effective. But Frankie de Jong, for me, like you said, I actually wouldn't be as disappointed if Barcelona do offload him this summer. Like I said, I don't really think it's
Bro,
going to
where has he
happen.
been, by the way? Have you heard anything about Frankie de Jong? It's been months.
He's been on
I have not
vacation.
heard anything about him since he walked off the pitch against Madrid when Valverde and him collided. I have
Yeah,
not heard anything about Frankie de Jong. Obviously, he missed the
yeah.
Euros, but he's not in training. There's no news about him. But I don't know. Like it's weird. But go ahead.
I've seen him on a boat like 7 times, but other than that, I've seen nothing. Like
On
I
a
don't
boat,
know.
really? Like in
Yeah,
person?
yeah. He was on, which you know what? He's on vacation. I'm not
Right.
trying to slander him
Dude,
for
he
that,
has to
but
enjoy that 30. He's making 30 mil a year. Obviously,
dude,
like,
I'd probably be on a yacht too if I was
yeah,
making
me
30.
too.
Yeah, but I don't know. With Frankie de Jong, it's difficult because I think he has so much talent. And I remember that Ajax season that he had and that run in the Champions League. I mean, knocking out I think Juventus, Madrid. I mean,
Mhm.
they honestly looked like one of the best Champions League sides that we've seen in so long under Ten Hag. And I just think that player that we saw with Ajax that season, I think we've definitely gotten to see glimpses. But I mean, if I can explain it best, I just saw a Frankie de Jong compilation on Twitter, and there were a bunch of Ajax highlights still in there. So it's like he's almost not really reached that potential yet. And I understand he's definitely been through a couple injuries, and I think this season was pretty poor from him just because he just wasn't able to get a good run of games before he got injured. And obviously that Valverde collision that he had, it's not his fault. I mean,
No,
he wasn't going
his
100% on
ankle
the ball.
wasn't his. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, there's nothing. You feel bad for that because he just got injured. I think he got injured maybe 4 or 5 times this season. So it's
Mhm.
definitely hard to blame him for that. But those wages, if it's anywhere close to that 37 million a year, yeah, you've got to offload him. And I think, I mean, United they've tried to sign him for a couple summers, and they were willing to pay 100 million. And I don't want to lose Frankie Young because I think he is a great player. But given what the club needs, I mean, would you sell Frankie Young for 100 million, get those wages off the table, and then spend that money? I mean, if you got 100 million for Frankie Young and lost all those wages, you could probably sign a top defensive midfielder and a left winger as well.
Yep.
So it's it's a difficult question for sure. But really, I would like to keep Rafinha, of course. Araujo, same. Lewandowski, man, if Saudi Arabia could take him off Barcelona's hands, I would absolutely love that. And I know some Barca fans still like him, and I don't know. I just can't get by. I just think the poor attitude is worse than even like I can go with the bad performances, but just the crying when you don't get the ball from your teammates. Like the Lamine Yamal thing was just terrible. I think I saw you make a video on it as well. Like
Yeah.
Lamine Yamal, I was trusting him with the ball way more than Lewandowski because every single time Lewa got it, I just felt like he was. You want a striker that's selfish, of course, in front of goal because maybe he has confidence and belief in himself. But in that preseason game against City, that was just frustrating as well because he just had opportunities to pass it to his teammates, took it himself, and it didn't work. I'm excited to see how Hansi Flick maybe can get the most out of Lewandowski. But, I mean, you're paying him around 30 million, maybe 25, 30 million a year. And he's someone that I don't think is really helping the team get to the next level. I don't know. Like you said a couple minutes ago, where Barca maybe they find it difficult to let go of these players, but Madrid, they do so well to replace them
Pivoting.
before
Right.
their
Boom.
decline. Yeah, I mean they sold Ronaldo like after the Champions League final in 2018.
Yeah.
Ronaldo can go. I mean that's like a club that knows their worth and they know that they can get these players. They can get different players to replace them. So yeah, the Frankie. I mean Lewandowski. I mean some Barca fans have talked about Ter Stegen as well. I don't see that happening,
Me
but
neither, but we
yeah,
got to start thinking about it because he's
I
he's
know.
starting to look a little washed already.
Yes, he is. Yeah, yeah. That's. I mean, have you seen that Ter Stegen? Like every time he makes a mistake, there's a Ter Stegen like Twitter account that posts every single time he misses a save.
Bro, the nicknames they
I
give him
follow
are
those.
insane. The nickname, they're
Yeah,
so funny, bro. They're crazy. Have you seen the nicknames they give him? Ter Saddam and Terror
yeah.
Hits?
I mean, yeah. Ter stand around. Yeah,
It's
that's
crazy. Ter statue,
yeah,
like it's insane. Like people are
yeah.
creative as hell. But yeah, for me, Ter Stegen is a guy who we have to think about. Look, guys, as you guys know, I don't like talking bad about Lewandowski. It's actually something that I dread. I don't like talking bad about Lewandowski. But Gibson brought him up, so I gotta just
Yeah,
piggyback up what he said.
yeah. I put
Lewandowski
that out there.
Lewandowski's washed, quite frankly, with you. Like, I'm just gonna be honest, and I don't mean to sound like a douche, but like a not like a douche, but like I don't mean to sound mean, but he's washed. And we saw it post World Cup. If you've been watching Lewandowski for a couple years now, it's been post World Cup. It's not just last season. And what you said, I'll echo exactly what you said. The attitude, bro. There was a shot that he missed against Milan. He shanked it 5 feet wide of the post, and then he was looking at his teammate like, "Give me the ball." It's like, bro, why are you complaining all the time?
Yeah, I know.
Like these kids are like they're kids, man. It's
Yeah,
preseason. Like you gotta relax, and especially because, and I brought this point up before. Ronaldo used to be a brat on the pitch, but when he was at Madrid, but he was also the second best player in the world and winning Ballon d'Ors and
he
carrying
bagged it.
his team to
Yeah,
UCL finals. Messi could be a brat sometimes too. Like they're complaining. That's fine. But like you could do that when you're that level of player. When you're
yeah,
washed like Lewandowski, it's just like, what are we doing here? You know what I mean? Like, what makes you think that you have the power to complain to these kids where you're not much better either? So again, I echo exactly what you said. I thought you brought up a lot of great points, and for me, I think that Frankie De Jong is a guy who we have to look at and see if what we can garner for him. If you can get a good fee for Frankie De Jong, you can get him off the books. I think for me, the biggest problem that I have with Barca fans a lot of times when discussing Frankie De Jong and what they say about him is that they use him as a scapegoat a lot of times. And for me, I always bank on talent, and I see the talent with Frankie De Jong. I think Frankie De Jong is one of the most talented players in the world at his position. But again, availability. And one thing we got to talk about Frankie De Jong, if you want to give me your thoughts here quickly with this, in big games, he does tend to ghost a little bit. And we've
yeah,
seen it a couple times already. We saw it. The first game that comes to my mind was the two legs against United in the Europa League last year with
yeah.
Xavi. where he was dreadful in both of them, honestly. Like the whole team didn't play well in that second leg, but for the most part, Frankie Young was a guy who really came up small, and he's a guy who's not really, he doesn't really give you that confidence in the big moments like a Fede
Yeah.
Valverde does. When you look at Fede Valverde in those big moments for Madrid, assisting in a UCL final, scoring against Man City in the UCL quarterfinal. You look at Fede Valverde and you're like, I can count on this guy. I don't know if we get that feeling. I don't know. Maybe I'm just me. I don't want to speak for all Barca fans. Obviously, we have another Barca fan here who can speak for himself. But like, do you get that same feeling with Frankie De Jong, or do you trust him a lot?
Yeah, no, I understand that too because I think games in La Liga, I think he does put out good performances. And like you said, talent-wise, I mean, Cancelo said within the first month of being at Barcelona, he said the player that surprised him the most was Frankie de Jong because on the ball, he's so good. And I think he's one of those guys in training sessions that would be the best player there. But then yeah, like you said, those big moments, I would say in Clásicos as well, I just don't really notice him. I don't feel like sometimes he'll show for the ball, maybe take a couple quick turns and then lay it off to the teammate. But like someone like Valverde, which I think that's why people rate him higher, even though Frankie De Jong on the ball is better than Valverde. But when you talk about who's the better player overall and who would you rather have in your team right
It's
now,
Valverde,
it would be yeah, it would
and
be
it's really
Valverde.
not close to me right now. It
Yeah,
used to be close. It's really not to me. It's not a debate right now.
yeah. I know when I have a Madrid fan and when he brought up that like Valverde versus De Jong, I immediately shut it down. But then after these, I mean, that was probably like 2018, I would say, maybe 19. I don't know. But yeah, Valverde now it's completely different. He's on another level than Frankie De Jong because he actually establishes himself in games. And Frankie De Jong, I just feel like you can have all the talent in the world. Like you said, I also like to back talent. And for the last couple of seasons, some Barca fans have wanted Frankie De Jong out. Like you said, I think because he's not from the academy, I think he does kind of get a lot of blame to
Yeah.
be honest. And of
Mhm.
course, he's on high wages, so it's understandable that he gets blamed. But yeah, sometimes I just don't feel like he's proving his worth to be honest. Because when you can sell him for 100 million and his wages are that high, you have to be putting in very good performances in the biggest games for Barca. And I think in Clásicos, I've really never seen like a Frankie De Jong compilation in a big game. Maybe I could be wrong about that, but I just don't feel like he ever has these great standout performances because I can think of, I mean, obviously, like the best players, you can think of these performances and you can go back and say, this is exactly what they did. I remember almost every touch. They were so dominant. Frankie de
Right.
Jong, like I said, I mean, on Twitter, we're still seeing Ajax highlights in his compilations. That's not a great sign because
No.
how long ago was that? 2019? I mean, it should be all Barca at this point. But I just feel like in those games in La Liga, he's great. You can depend on him there. But like you said, yeah, you want someone that can really, like you said, just put a name to themselves and do very well in these big matches. But Frankie de Jong, sometimes I feel like he struggles with that.
I 100% agree. And that, guys, is going to be the end of this video. A fantastic conversation. I'm telling you guys right now, you're not going to want to miss the video we're going to do on Gibson's channel about Barca expectations. If you guys like this video, you're going to love that one. I appreciate Gibson, man, so much. He honestly, I don't think he understands how much I appreciate him coming onto the channel and doing this, man. I really hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, if you guys want to see more of this, I had to pay Gibson $100 to do this. But again, I'll keep bringing in the money if you guys want to see it some more. I'll put it out of my pocket. I'll pay Gibson because he's a busy guy. So I'll tell we'll get him to come on the channel a lot more, and obviously we'll do stuff on his channel. Subscribe to his fucking channel right now. Right now, everybody watching this video, do me this favor and go subscribe to his channel. And please, because you guys are not going to regret it. I promise you're not going to regret it. A fantastic content creator. We're going to go do a video on his channel right now because honestly, guys, full disclosure, we got to be honest, both of us here, we don't have Zoom Premium. So we can only make these videos so long and time is running out. So
You got 5 minutes
we're
on the
not spending
timer.
it.
Yeah.
I already have to spend the 100 on Gibson. I can't spend the 106 on
Hey,
the
you got
Zoom.
my Venmo, right? You got my Venmo?
So we got to go do it on his channel. But I appreciate you guys so much for watching. Go sub to Gibson, man. He's fantastic. And yeah, I love you guys, man. Thank you so much. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Peace out.
You guys, thank you.